Leaving a narcissist feels like trying to walk away from someone who's grabbed your nervous system and rewired it without your permission. Not your heart, your nervous system specifically. Ever wonder why someone can know a relationship is destroying them and still not be able to walk away? Today, I'll explain the psychology of narcissistic relationships like you're 5 years old. By the end, you'll understand exactly why leaving feels neurologically impossible and what actually has to happen before it doesn't. Here's what you don't understand yet. It's not love keeping you there. Not really. It's not even fear of being alone. It's something much older than that. It's something your brain does automatically, without asking you, that makes leaving feel genuinely worse than staying. And staying is destroying you. But your brain doesn't care about that part. Let's start with the moment it actually begins. Not the first red flag, not the first fight. The very beginning. You meet someone and they're absolutely electric. They make you feel like the most interesting person in the room and remember small things you mentioned once in passing. They text first, make plans, and look at you like you're the answer to something they've been searching for. Psychologists have a name for this phase. They call it love bombing. But forget the clinical label for a second and think about what it actually feels like. Someone found the exact frequency your brain runs on and broadcasts it directly at you, non-stop, at full volume. Your brain responds the way any brain would. It releases dopamine, the chemical that says, "More of this, please." Every text, every compliment, every moment of being truly and completely seen gets logged as a reward. And the brain doesn't just enjoy this, it starts to need it. This phase can last weeks or months, and the intensity of it is deliberate, whether the person doing it realizes that or not. The neurological imprint it leaves is profound. Research suggests it can create attachment patterns as strong as those formed in early childhood bonding. This is where most people think the story starts, but the real trap hasn't actually been set yet, because then something shifts. The warmth becomes inconsistent, and the attention comes and goes. The person who once made you feel like the center of their world suddenly goes cold, and you have no idea why. You run through everything you said, everything you did. You try harder. You shrink yourself. And then sometimes the warmth comes back, and your brain lights up like it just survived something. Here's the mechanism that changes everything. Think of it like a slot machine. If every single pull paid out, you'd get bored. You'd stop playing. But random rewards, wins you can't predict, can't time, can't control, those create compulsion. Your brain stops treating the reward as something pleasant and starts treating it as something to chase. The unpredictability isn't a flaw in the relationship. Inside your nervous system, it has become the entire point. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. But here's what it actually is in plain terms. Your brain has been trained to work for love, and now working for it feels like love. Your brain sent a message that basically said, "The affection is inconsistent, so I need to try harder." Trying harder is how I survive this. Do not stop, do not leave, just adjust. You didn't write that program. Your brain did, while you were busy trying to fix things. But here's where it gets darker, and this is the part nobody talks about. Every time the warmth comes back, after the cold spell, after the fight, after the silent treatment, your brain doesn't just feel relief. It feels something closer to euphoria. The return of affection hits harder than if it had never been withdrawn. The high is bigger because the low was real. Your brain has now associated this specific person with something it can't get anywhere else. Stability feels boring. Kindness from other people feels flat. A genuinely healthy partner can feel almost unrecognizable. Too easy, too predictable, not enough charge. This relationship, which is objectively painful, has become the most electrically charged thing in your life. So when you try to leave, your brain isn't processing, "I'm escaping something harmful." And here's the plot twist, the one that makes people feel genuinely less crazy when they finally hear it. The longer this goes on, the more your sense of self has been quietly replaced. Narcissistic relationships run on a specific pattern. Your opinions get questioned, and your memory gets challenged. Your reactions get labeled as overreactions. Slowly, the voice that says, "I know what I saw," gets quieter. And the voice that says, "Maybe I'm the problem," gets louder. Psychologists call this gaslighting. But here's what it actually does to your brain. Imagine your sense of self as a GPS. It knows where you are and which direction you're heading. It knows when something is off. Gaslighting is someone quietly corrupting the map while you're driving. And the corruption happens gradually, so gradually that you don't notice the map changing. One small dismissal at a time, one rewritten memory at a time, until the version of reality you're navigating by isn't yours anymore. By the time you're trying to leave, you don't fully trust your own read on reality. You're not sure the relationship is as bad as it feels. You wonder if you're being dramatic. You've explained the relationship to friends, watched the concern on their faces, and then gone home and talked yourself out of everything they said because the GPS is broken, and you don't know it's broken. 3 things are now happening at once inside you. Your brain is dopamine dependent on this specific person. Your nervous system has been trained to chase inconsistency and call it love. And the internal compass you'd normally use to navigate out has been quietly corrupted from the inside. That's not a love story with a bad ending. That's a trap with 3 locks. Now here's what changes when you understand this. The people who leave successfully almost never do it by deciding harder. They do it by changing the information environment first. They spend time with people who reflect reality back, not to be convinced to leave, but to slowly repair the GPS. Here's why that works at the brain level. Your nervous system updates its map through repeated exposure to consistent, reliable responses. Time with people who don't run hot and cold starts to recalibrate what normal feels like. Not because someone told you to leave, because your brain slowly remembers what it felt like before the map got corrupted. The internal voice doesn't come back all at once. It comes back in small moments. A friend says, "That's not okay," and something in you agrees instead of arguing. That's not a small thing. That's the GPS rebooting, and it requires repetition. One conversation doesn't undo months or years of corrupted input, but consistent, grounded connection. The kind where someone says the same true thing gently, over and over, eventually cuts through. You can't logic your way out of a nervous system response or willpower past dopamine withdrawal. The brain that got trained into this situation isn't going to untrain itself alone, but a brain that starts receiving consistent, uncharged warmth begins to notice the difference. And noticing the difference is where everything starts. Here's your clip line, the one worth writing down. You didn't stay because you were weak. You stayed because your brain was running a survival program never designed for someone who weaponized warmth. The system worked exactly as intended. It just had the wrong target. That's not weakness. That's a very good brain pointed at the wrong thing. Think back to someone you know who stayed, who you watched from the outside and couldn't understand, who kept going back after everything you saw. Now you know what was actually happening. Their brain wasn't broken. It was doing its job. Love bombing wired in the dependency. Intermittent reinforcement trained the chase. And gaslighting took out the compass. All 3, running at once, with no visible exit. The question I want to leave you with is this. If leaving isn't really about making a decision, if it's actually about repairing a nervous system trained to call this pain home, what does getting out actually require? And if you've ever judged someone for staying, does understanding the 3 locks change anything?